Alright, welcome back to video editing, and what we're going to do in this video is we're going to take a quick look at ScreenFlow. And this is the program on the Mac. We've kind of covered it previously, but I wanted to make this all-inclusive here, so I'm going to show you a few key features of ScreenFlow and how to edit the recording and all that kind of stuff tailored toward your webinars. Alright, so you can see here that this is actually the previous video that we did. This is the introduction to video editing. And here you can see my blue snowball, and then you can see the screen recording down here. Now if this was a webinar, you'd see this audio representation here would be down on the bottom. Recording with ScreenFlow is nice because if you're presenting, it will pick up your mic as well as everyone else who's talking. So, you know, that's one of the nice features about using a screen recording software. So as far as editing this goes, I mean, really what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to find your starting point. Let's say that's here, and then you'll hit T, or you can always come through here and right click and hit split clip, and it'll do the same thing. I'm a big fan of keyboard shortcuts, so that's why I always use the keyboard shortcuts. So let's say I started right here, and then I'm going to scroll down here to the end, and I ended right there. And so that's all I'm doing. I'm just doing a trim, and then I'm just going to highlight it and hit delete. And then I'm going to do the same thing down here. And then I will bring this, what I'm doing here is I'm clicking this blank space to bring it back here to 0 seconds. So this is how I start. The other thing that I usually do on the screen recording is I right click and I hit add starting transition. And so what that'll do is it will pull that in so it, you know, it fades from black. My personal favorite is the dip to black. It's just kind of a fade in. You're not editing, so it just kind of makes it look a little bit cleaner. And then you can do the same thing on the end transitions as well. Or as far as webinars, that's really all there is to editing a screen recording for webinars. Now for the actual screen recording, you're probably going to edit it a little bit closer. You're going to play it through and edit it. But editing is essentially going to be the same theory. Because really all you're doing is you're just cutting things. You're not really adding too much graphical transitions and things like that. You know, you can, with ScreenFlow, you can come through here, and if I want to create a transition here, all I have to do is I just click and drag this over the previous clip, and then you can see here it brings in a transition, and then you can right click on it and have it change the transition. So that's kind of what the transition looks like. You probably don't want that much on there. Let's see what this looks like. See, that looks a little bit better, a little bit faster. You could probably even do it a little shorter. See, there you go. That's as easy as it gets as far as adding transitions. So if you do want to add transitions, you can. It's easy to do. Again, I'm going to recommend you keep it simple. Keep everything simple, and remember that. A couple of other features that you can do inside ScreenFlow here is you can crop it. Alright, so you can see that I have this gray space, and I actually changed the desktop of my monitor so that it would have this gray space behind it. So if I wanted to crop this entire video down, I can do that, and ScreenFlow will actually jump to this video. Then you can just hit apply, and you can see now that the video is just this window here. So you can, with the gray it's a little bit harder to see, but you can see that it highlights the active area. So that's helpful if you can't record in full screen. You know, usually I try to hit my applications in full screen just so you can see it. Like this here is, I put it in full screen. Whenever I do webinars, I put it in full screen as well, so you get the maximum screen resolution. And then what you can also do, you can add reflections and you can crop things and things like that. You know, you can just kind of tinker around with those. If there's an issue that you're trying to cover up, then you can try using those. A lot of times though, it's just easier to go back and re-record it, if at all possible. Then you can add, you know, color filters and video filters. Again, I'm going to recommend that you kind of shy away from those just because we're keeping it simple, and the more time you put into this, that means you're going to have to make more on the back end to make your time worth it. You also have audio properties here, so a lot of times whenever I record, if I don't check my mic, it'll record low, so then I always come and I boost my audio up here. You can also mute your audio. This is effective if, you know, like you have, like there's my computer making sound. sound. So if you don't want that sound, you can just go ahead and mute it if all it is pop-up notifications and things like that. Another nice thing is this remove background noise filter. So if you have a fan or you have some sort of background noise, it's kind of constant, you know, maybe the air conditioner kicks in or whatever it may be, you can tick that and move that slider back and forth until you get the right amount of background noise gone. If you do too much, it'll actually take too much out of you speaking, so you'll get a tinny sound to your voice. So you can just try it and see. Usually you're going to try to aim for the best recording environment possible, but life gets in the way, and you know that's not always possible. So that's kind of why we do a little bit of editing, and that filter is nice. Another thing that I usually come through and change, especially for, you know, tutorials and demos and things like that, is this click effect. I'll actually do an invert here, and then I'll use a pointer as like a light or dark circle. So what it'll do, see, you can see my pointer there, and so it just kind of makes it different. It makes it stand out a little bit better, because sometimes that's a little harder to see, especially on a high monitor resolution like this. And then you can also add a sound on click, so it'll, you know, make a little pop-up sound whenever you click. You can also have it show keystrokes. Sometimes this is buggy. Most of the time it works, but occasionally it is buggy. You know, if you use for me, if you use a Control C or, you know, Control Z, things like that, you know, you use those keyboard shortcuts. A lot of times though, I'll just come through and I'll add the text on here as like a little button or something, because I don't want it showing. If I showed every keyboard shortcut that I used, the video would get cluttered up with them. The other thing you can do here is call out properties. You can actually create a call out. We kind of looked at this before, but you can have it highlight the mouse cursor. So if you kind of want it to follow, and then you can zoom it up. So as it follows the mouse cursor around, it will actually move that circle up and down. And then there, you know, there's a few fancy little things and things like that. So it's good for call outs. The other thing you can do a foreground window. So if you wanted to zoom this up, you could, you know, make it fill the whole screen, especially if it was a smaller object. The other option that I'll do is I'll do a freehand, and I'll change it to a box here just so I can kind of show you. And I'll go through here, and let's say I'll highlight this, and then I'll blur the background, and I'll zoom it up. So if I'm demoing something and it's a little bit difficult to read, the other reason that I usually use this is I'll change the opacity to 0, untick the blur background, and I'll blur this. So you can't see, you know, if it's an email address or personal information, address, things like that you don't want everybody to see. You can come through and mark it out so that nobody can. All right, the other option you have is you have an annotation. So you can actually add an annotation here, and what it'll do is you can have an arrow. So if I wanted to point to her and then point to you know, the URL button up here at the top. So that's kind of what an annotation does. And you can add boxes, so you can bring stuff out, circles. This is also effective for blacking things out. So like you can do that and then change the color to black. You could use this the same way that you use the blur out. I prefer the blur out just because it doesn't draw the eye too much. You know, then you can add, you know, shadows and outlines and things like that. So those are effective to pointing to buttons and pointing to URLs and things like that. The other option you have is you can add text on here, so you can add a text box, and this is usually where I do my keyboard shortcut. So I'll do like Command plus N, and I'll just drop it down here on the bottom. So, you know, this gives you a little bit more control, and then you'll notice that the little yellow box pops up there to show you that it is in the center. That's usually what I'll do if it's an interesting keyboard shortcut. I try not to show them all, because otherwise it would the screen would go crazy. That is effective if, you know, it's a new application or things like that, and you're really trying to push those keyboard shortcuts. And so you can kind of see you have all the text properties over here on the side. This last one here is where you add your media. So you can see it already has your screen recording and your snowball, your audio. You can also add new media down here, and it'll open up a dialog box, so you can add other stuff. You can add images, audio, video, just about anything you can open on your Mac as far as things in that genre. So you have MP3 and WAV files and MP4s and .moves, things like that. Most of those you'll be able to open. You also have the option to add a recording, and then this little window pops down, so you can add, if you messed up your voice, you can just kind of, record this audio, don't record the screen, and it'll just give you a quick deal to record the audio real fast. Or if you want to show something a little bit more in detail, this is good for, cutting in and cutting out. If you realized you forgot something, things like that. Then we've kind of already looked at this, but as far as exporting out of ScreenFlow, the command is Command E, and it'll bring it down this dialog box, which is super easy. File name, where to save it, your preset, which is either high or low, high definition, low definition. Most of the time I do low, unless I'm really pushing, a 720p, 1080p, things like that. For YouTube, I'll usually do it high, because otherwise YouTube kind of complains about it. And then this 540 right here is kind of what I shoot for. This is a 1080p monitor, so that just kind of works out to be nice and even there. And you can change this, so you can go 45, and you'll notice that it changes the buttons right over here, or the numbers right over here on the side. And then the rest of this you don't really need to worry about too much. You do have more options here. Really the only 3 that I ever use is web, high, and low, and then lossless. The only reason I use lossless is if I'm putting it into Final Cut Pro or things like that. Lossless enables me to export that over and keep 100% of the resolution. The only problem with that is then the file was huge. For an 18-minute video, it would probably be about 2 gigs. Especially with this being a 1080p, it might even be bigger than that. So you can imagine a webinar. You have a webinar that's 2.5 hours. You can fill up a hard drive pretty quickly on that. So that's ScreenFlow. Just kind of a quick tutorial. You can see editing is super easy on here. They make it very simple, very easy to understand, and that's why I love ScreenFlow and Camtasia is they aim toward that, keeping it super easy but still giving you all the options you need. So what we'll do in the next video is we will take a look at iMovie, and I'll kind of walk you through some of the editing options there. It's pretty similar to ScreenFlow, but it does have its own commands and things like that. So I'll see you there.